I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a young journalist. He's kind of a globetrotter. He's spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe. His name is Alex Newman from the New American fabulous publication. Alex Newman, you've been on before and you were a big hit, and I'm sure you'll be a big hit again. Thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Greg. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I love your show, so it's really nice to be with you.
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, this whole Kavanaugh thing, if you look close up, it's not just about Republicans and Democrats. Really, the Democrats have turned into the New World Order, and they say so. They want open borders. They don't want ICE. They are not really for the working guy anymore. They call us all deplorables. And you have got a new article out, you know, an 80,000-foot article out on the New World Order and the globalists and what is going on. What's really going on is a much bigger play going on in the world for power. It's a struggle for absolute power, correct?
That's right. What you have now is the Council on Foreign Relations, which, you know, if you don't know about the Council on Foreign Relations, listener, viewer, you need to do some research, because the Council on Foreign Relations is kind of the brain trust behind this little New World Order movement, at least as it relates to the United States. It's part of course, a global network. They have their sister organization in London, the Royal Institute of International Affairs. But the CFR has a new article out calling for what they describe as a committee to save the world order from President Trump. So they're very concerned that their little New World Order is going up in smoke. Trump has been withdrawing from UN organizations. He's been withdrawing from international agreements. You know, the Paris Agreement we're working on, the UNESCO, the UNRWA. Just recently they said International Criminal Court tries to bring an American in front of it, they're going to be prosecuted. Their assets are going to be frozen. So this is freaking them out. And so the Council on Foreign Relations has a new article out. Two well-known globalists worked together on this article, which kind of plays off of a book on the same theme that they're doing, where they said we need a new G9, a group of 9 countries, you know, Canada, South Korea, and so on, that would basically hold down the fort of the New World Order until they can get rid of Trump and put an American president who will go back to pushing the New World Order. So they're very transparent about their agenda now. They're very transparent in the fact that they're not happy with what Trump is doing vis-a-vis opposing globalism. And so, you know, I think that's a cause for celebration for Americans.
He got out of the giant fraud that was never signed, incidentally. Never signed. I got a letter from Mike Pompeo's office from the Kerry State Department to prove it, and they say it was never signed. So, you know, it was.
You're talking about the Paris Agreement, Greg?
No, the Iran nuclear deal. That was never signed. The JCPOA, the P plus 5, whatever that garbage was, you know, the big bribe money thing that Trump's been talking about in his campaign stops. I say campaign. Let's say town hall meetings or whatever you want to call them. They're fantastic. But anyway, I want to get into this, you know, more about what the trade deal is going. I mean, all of a sudden that we have a president that says, hey, we want more fair trade, and everybody's going crazy. So he's making them mad, so it must be something good for America. Talk about that.
Sure. Well, you know, on the trade front, as far as Trump's rhetoric, I've been incredibly pleased. He was down in Vietnam last year, and he exposed what we've been trying to expose for decades, right? He said in clear terms, these multilateral trade agreements surrender our sovereignty. We lose our ability to govern ourselves and set our own trade policy. Of course, our Constitution grants control over trade policy to the Congress. And so, you know, Trump said very clearly, we're not going to be doing that anymore. In his recent speech to the UN General Assembly, he just hit home run after home run. You know, we don't believe in globalism. We reject the ideology of globalism. We won't tell you guys what to do, but you won't tell us what to do. Global governance is a major threat, and all countries need to be dealing with this. So, you know, you have a president who's out there completely blowing up the globalist narrative. But then if you look at this new trade deal, this U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement that Robert Lighthizer organized, which incidentally, this is another member of the Globalist Council on Foreign Relations, there are some incredibly huge problems with it. The first one being that it continues to advance this trilateral notion of a North America. So my guess is Trump has not yet read this monstrosity. My guess is Robert Lighthizer called him and said, hey, this is a great deal. You know, American farmers are going to do well. We'll be able to block China. And, you know, you and I were talking a little bit before the show. This sounds like a huge provision to have the communist Chinese, you know, they've been shipping products into the U.S. through front companies in Mexico and Canada. So that's a big victory. But the problem is, this new agreement surrenders a tremendous amount of sovereignty. It's nice that it has, you know, an expiration date and it dies after that. But what this agreement does, it sets up all these North American committees, North American bureaucracies. It keeps this tribunal system in place, the investor state dispute resolution mechanism that Trump himself has said is absolutely nuts and tried to get rid of it. Apparently Trudeau would refuse to go along with this if they didn't keep it. And what it does is it sets up an international kangaroo court of international bureaucrats that has the purported power to overrule our state governments, or even our federal government. Like when the World Trade Organization barked an order at our Congress. We were just with Congressman Thomas Massey a couple days ago here in Appleton, and he said, the World Trade Organization ordered them to get rid of the country of origin labeling requirements on meat because it was a violation of World Trade Organization rules. And his colleagues in Congress just said, you want us to jump, just tell us how high, and they did it right away. So this is a big problem. My guess is, every time I've been disappointed with something Trump has done, almost every time, he has come back around and done the right thing or tried to do the right thing. So I think when he figures out what's in this agreement, there are going to be some of the infamous "you're fired" cards whipped out. I certainly hope so. But this trade agreement's bad news. Big parts of the TPP, which Trump so brilliantly got us out of right when he took office, right? Parts of that were snuck in. The head of the Council on Foreign Relations was running around bragging that this new agreement was basically NAFTA plus TPP plus 10%, and that we should pass it immediately. So I think Trump, he naively trusted some of these people. He's got to get rid of them now, and I hope there will be serious consequences for the people who tried to sell out our sovereignty. Even though, as we mentioned earlier, we recognize that there may be some good provisions in here that we can hopefully pursue in other ways.
Yeah, he brought up in the press conference that one of the things he was most concerned with, and probably the reason why this slid by, was he wanted to cut China off from sending in. He even brought it up in the press. I was like, wow. The press, right over their head, they're so stupid. The White House press, they don't even read whitehouse.gov. They're stupid. That's why they're there. They're stupid or they're corrupt. That's why they're there.
Yep.
And I used to work for ABC and CNN, so they're stupid. And they didn't even understand what he was saying when he said it was blocking China and Mexico and Canada. Setting up these companies, which was, I think, a huge thing, which is to get China to come to the table. Now, Mike Pompeo is meeting in North Korea, and he's meeting the Chinese over there. So, they're worried. I mean, China is, and then now we have the Europeans. I've seen the Europeans wanting to throw in with China. I mean, so what is that about? I mean, these people are corrupt. They're wanting to screw their own populations.
That's right. And this is, I think, one of the most important and most underreported stories, maybe of the last century, right? We've been reporting in the New American. I did a cover story a few years ago, and people said, "Oh, Alex, you're just being conspiratorial." But my article was about how the communist Chinese dictatorship was, I called it, staking claim in the New World Order. And I wasn't speculating. I wasn't theorizing. You had people like George Soros saying that communist China needs to own, was the word he used, the New World Order, that they have a better functioning government than the United States, and that basically China should run the New World Order that these people have been building for decades, for generations now. You had David Rockefeller back in the 70s, went over there, came back, wrote in the New York Times in 1973 that the social experiment under the mass murderer Chairman Mao, of course he didn't call him the mass murderer, he said it was the most important and the most successful in human history. So communist China rose to power, rose to prominence with the deliberate assistance of key globalists in our State Department, in our Defense Department, almost all of them members of the Council on Foreign Relations or actual communist agents. And this process has continued through the present day. And they think we're so stupid, right? They think we're so stupid that now they think they're going to get away with blaming Trump for this. There's, the globalists are saying, well, Trump's opposition to globalism means China now has the opportunity to take over the architecture of global governance. Who do they think they're kidding? We've been reporting on this for so many years. Long before Trump was even running for president, the communist Chinese were running at least half a dozen incredibly important UN agencies, right? Including the one, incidentally, that the globalists are grooming to censor the internet, the International Telecommunications Union. So this has been an engineered rise of communist China. Our military now is so dependent on communist Chinese stolen technology and stolen manufacturing that we apparently can't even keep a lot of our Air Force planes in the sky without Chinese parts. So Trump has finally started talking about this, started taking steps to address this. He's got an excellent advisor, Peter Navarro, the guy who made the absolutely brilliant documentary, Death by China. And so finally, after all these years, Obama invited communist Chinese troops to the United States at least twice to come do training with American soldiers. So the globalists have this idea that communist China is going to take the mantle of the New World Order. This model that they're building over there, basically technocratic, brutal authoritarianism, is going to be the model for the New World Order. Now, Trump is trying to put a stop to that, and because of that, they're freaking out. So, and ironically, trying to blame Trump for all the fiasco that they've unleashed on us. So I'm thrilled to see that they're finally starting to take this seriously. But we have to be careful because, as you just mentioned, you have globalists who will use the problems that they created to try to advance more globalism. And we're seeing that right now. They're saying, as an example, they're saying as one example that sorry about that, but they're saying as one example that the EU and the United States now need to merge together into some sort of alliance. They're trying to resurrect the TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, as a way of further eroding our sovereignty under the guise of battling China. So absolute disaster. And, we need to be careful here, but it's so refreshing. This is one of those existential issues, Greg, where if we get it wrong on this China issue, our liberties, our republic, freedom around the world may be extinguished. So, it's one of those crucial things. And I think Trump has been pretty strategic in focusing on some of these existential questions, like the mass migration, like the suicidal trade policy, like the communist China and the globalism. So, we need to give him some credit for that.
And then you got Google helping China with a censorship program. No, we don't. Then we have this tirade out recently with this Google employee telling everybody to F off and the Republicans can go to hell. And unbelievable what they really think. I mean, this is unbelievable that Google is so anti-American and so pro-globalist. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh, no question about it, Greg. I don't know if you had a chance to see that video that leaked out through Breitbart of the top leadership of Google after the election. They were just losing it. We need to take action. We need to see what we can do to stop it. We tried to get out the Latino vote to stop this, and we were unsuccessful. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. And this is the information source for billions of people around the world. As you mentioned, they're totally in bed with the communist Chinese, helping to build a censored search engine over there. We know from Google executives, right? One of them quit, that they're helping the Chinese develop advanced artificial intelligence. So, the technology companies, I think this is a big story also that some big parts of the alternative media missed until they started overtly censoring people. We've got a series of stories in one of our latest issues of the New American Magazine. We did a 3-part package talking about these big technology companies, and they are working hand in hand with the globalists, right? A lot of them are actually run by people who are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, people who attend the Bilderberg meetings. And now they're working to completely reshape the internet because what they've realized is that many millions, if not tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of people have woken up to this agenda as a result of information that they originally stumbled across online. So now we're going to start seeing the really intense stuff, right? First, they started with Alex Jones. He was the easier target because sometimes he's a little bit bombastic. I love Alex Jones, by the way. I go on his show, and I think he's woken up millions of Americans. I think he's done a great job. But he was the easier target. So they start with him, and then they'll start going down the line. Breitbart will be next, and Greg Hunter, and the New American, and eventually they'll go even for Fox News because there might be a little bit too much truth there. And that's the world we're moving toward. You have Obama handed over the keys to the internet, the architecture, the backbone of the internet to this body of global stakeholders. You have the UN openly conspiring with Communist China and Russia and all these others, Iran, to censor the internet, to build kill switches into the internet. So we are in danger in terms of being able to disseminate truth via the internet. And so I think everybody needs to have this in the back of their mind, right? If you see a good video on YouTube, download it because it might disappear. You see a good article that you think is very important, print out a physical copy. And we need to remember, how did we used to disseminate information in the days before the internet? Because if we lose on these fronts, we may have to go back to that, right? Pamphlets and print magazines, like the New American has a print magazine, and a lot of the other magazines are starting to shut down. They're going full online. But we need to remember that the people running these mega corporations are in bed with the globalists, if they aren't mega globalists themselves, and they want to silence us.
The Kavanaugh thing was a battle royal where they pulled out all the stops with. I mean, there's a video now that surfaced about Nancy Pelosi and the smear campaign. You know how to run a effective smear campaign, and to merchandise the smear campaign. They've been totally outed in this total phony. This wasn't just some woman who had a bad memory of a terrible experience. I think she has CIA connections. That's been reported. I think Ford. I think the other people coming out, not one of them had a grain of proof in any of their stories. Matter of fact, they contradicted themselves, and I think they perjured themselves. Why was the fight over Kavanaugh so big? Is it the military tribunals that are coming? That was brought up with Lindsey Graham in the Kavanaugh hearing in the last 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of Lindsey Graham?
It's a good question. I think what's really happened here is that the left, or at least the left-wing arm of the establishment, has realized that so much of their progress, progress I need to put in quotes because if you like liberty, if you like civilization, is the opposite of progress. Yeah. But evil. So much of their evil agenda has advanced through the courts. Right? They never could have gotten this stuff. They never could have gotten legalized mass slaughter of children if they had asked voters for it. Right? They never could have gotten the complete implosion, the destruction of marriage, if they had asked voters. They couldn't even do that in California, right? The most lunatic progressive state voted down homosexual marriage. So they need the Supreme Court to keep this agenda marching onwards. And, I have my concerns about Kavanaugh. I wonder about his complete, total support for warrantless surveillance, for example. I worry about, I don't know if you saw that story by Ambrose Evans Pritchard of The Telegraph, talking about Kavanaugh's role in the Ken Starr investigation into the Vince Foster death. I think those are some questions that need to be asked. But I think the left is so concerned that Kavanaugh might rule against some of their social engineering, against some of their outrageous power grabs, and now we would have 5-4 majority, that they realize, hey, our agenda might be under threat for the next 20 or 30 years. If Trump gets another one, then we're really in trouble. So they just went all out, and they saw how successful it was. What they did with Judge Roy Moore, I don't know if you remember that race.
Yeah, they screwed him.
Exact same process, exact same modus operandi, Washington Compost. But they had an assist from establishment Republicans in that case, right? Mitch McConnell and some of the other rhinos in the Senate said, oh, yeah, well, maybe there's something to it. And they didn't come to his defense. Trump did, right? Trump went down and campaigned for him. But the establishment wing of the Republican Party threw him under the bus. And the left said, hey, that worked. Now we got a progressive globalist in a seat that should have obviously been, conservative, Christian, constitutionalist. Probably would have been one of the best members of the Senate.
Correct.
So they said, hey, let's just replicate that again. It worked so well last time. The media helped us. The establishment Republicans helped us. The Democrats loved it. So let's just do it again. Fortunately, they lost this time, and I think that's good because if they had succeeded, you would have seen that in every congressional race, every effort to approve a judge or a cabinet member, and it just would have accelerated the absolute implosion of our civilization.
And well, they also got a big pie in the face. I mean, they talk about motivating. People are chanting at these Trump rallies. They know it was once they came out with the gang rape story. Let me get this straight. You went to 10 parties where they were drugging women and then gang raping them upstairs, but you decided to go to the other 9 parties and not drink the punch. I mean,
they just think we're so dumb, Greg. They think we're so dumb.
And I'll tell you, Mark Judge, as a journalist, Kavanaugh's friend. Kavanaugh's I don't know. I think he has a case too, but they made him out to be. He's not a public figure. And the lawsuits that are coming, Papadopoulos, the other people that they smeared, within the Trump administration with these phony FISA warrants and this media leak strategy, which is outrageous. I mean, it's outrageous. The media does not have a right to conspire with the Democrats in a campaign to smear people in a circular firing squad where you merchandise it, according to Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader in the House, where you merchandise your lie. And then you get them to report on it, then say, oh, hey, it's documented now. It's outrageous.
That's right. That video, Greg, is so insane. I mean, that is smoking gun evidence of the disgusting tactics that the Democrats will use. And, I think what people need to do, I went to go work for the Leadership Institute, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, maybe less. And the first thing they did when I got to headquarters for training was they gave us a copy of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Yep. And, that book was written decades ago. but you need to read it if you want to understand how these people operate. So, the first thing you read when you open it is, this book is dedicated to Lucifer. Right? I kid you not. Open it up, and it says right there in the front, it's dedicated to Lucifer. Then they tell you, the ends justifies the means. If you have to lie, if you have to cheat, if you have to steal to get your way, you do it, because the ends justifies the means. And people think, well, that's just some obscure political theorist. No, it's not. Hillary Clinton was a big fan. She did her thesis on Saul Alinsky. Oh, the connections between Obama and his radical little buddies and Saul Alinsky and the organizations and the operations that he created are so numerous that it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. So people need to read this. If you want to see the strategy, and we just saw it with these Kavanaugh hearings, and we saw it with Roy Moore, and we're going to keep seeing it. So if you want to understand the way that these people operate, you need to read the books that they read. You need to read their manuals. And this is one of the clearest examples. The smear machine. Now we have Nancy Pelosi bragging about how they do this. You need to understand this, or we're going to keep losing. And Trump is one of the few, I think, who's been able to withstand these sort of tactics. And that's why I think we have some good reasons for optimism. But if we don't understand the kind of techniques that they use against us, we're going to keep losing. And I think it was very encouraging to see how Trump and these members of the Senate were able to overcome in this case. Right? I wish they could have done it with Judge Roy Moore, and I wish they could do it more often. But hopefully now people are starting to get an understanding of what's going on, and I think they are.
Well, all these people that they suck into the Carter Page, Mr. Papadopoulos, Mark Judge, they don't care who they destroy, and that includes, these women that have committed that testified under oath, and I think these people are up for it. They don't realize what you mean. I could go to federal prison for 3 years per count. What? Excuse me? They're using these people. They don't care what happens to them.
And we need to start seeing that, Greg. We need to start seeing these people be held accountable. So, Judge Roy Moore's still got some pending lawsuits, but if anybody can be shown to have committed perjury, they need to be locked up. It's not a joking matter to destroy people's lives so that you can get your way politically. That is just so far beyond the realm of what's acceptable in a civilized society that, we need to be having a serious discussion as a nation. I think Jeff Sessions needs to get busy. I don't know what he's doing over there at the Justice Department, but we have, for all practical purposes, the fire is behind the gates now, right? This is all burning down, and Jeff Sessions is supposed to be the fireman, and he's snoozing on the job. Why are these people able to get away with this? Why are they out there rioting and beating people up and terrorizing people? And and the state attorneys general and the state prosecutors too. Why are these people not being indicted? Why is George Soros not being indicted? My friend and colleague Bill Jasper did an article about George Soros, the god who should be jailed, right? This guy is breaking laws all the time. There's a solid legal case to make against him for funding rioting, for funding criminal activity, and it's all for the purpose of subverting our free system of government. Why are none of these people being examined? Why are none of them being deposed? Why are none of them being indicted and prosecuted? I think they really need to get busy, or we're going to see more and more of this terror, and our republic will go down in flames.
One of the sad things, and I wanted to bring this out, is that there are plenty of women with legitimate sexual assault claims. And what the Democrats have done to the legitimate women who really have grievances, they have so screwed them. They have so destroyed any woman with a real claim. Like what Karen Morahan, who has a claim against Keith Ellison.
Bill Clinton's accusers. Bill Clinton raped how many women? And you're exactly right, Greg. It's simply disgusting. And the implications of this go to the heart of civilized society. And if we lose civilized society, which we're in the process of doing now as a result of this kind of stuff, and it's kind of a symptom of it as well, the consequences will be atrocious. And thank you for what you're doing, Greg, to expose this stuff. It's so important that people understand this.
Do you think we're headed towards civil war?
I think it's possible. I think it's very, very possible. And I think the establishment, the deep state, the insiders, whatever you want to call them, they would love to see that. They would love to see Americans killing each other, beating each other, bombing each other in the streets. First of all, it would have the effect of destroying America. Second of all, it would have the effect of discrediting, at least for history in the history books that'll be written in the future, and to people around the world, the idea of freedom. Right? Oh, well, I guess that whole silly idea about God-given rights and self-government. Well, that was stupid. Look what happened to those dumb Americans, 200 and something years, and they ended up all killing each other, and so the UN had to come and save them. So we need to be very careful. And it's not too late to turn this around. It really is not. But if we allow these radicals to continue running, and of course they're puppet masters above, to continue running around, tearing down our institutions, tearing down our civilization, we will reap horrifying consequences like you just described.
Alex Newman, you are you're an international correspondent for the New American. What is your title?
I'm the foreign correspondent for the New American magazine, and I wear some other hats, but people want to read this stuff, go to thenewamerican.com, subscribe for our daily headlines, our weekly headlines, and get the print magazine, right? They're censoring the internet. Make sure you have physical copies. You can give it to your congressman, your state reps. So thenewamerican.com, yeah.
And your article about the globalist New World Order, what's the title of it? When's it coming out?
Coming out ASAP. And it is called the Council on Foreign Relations Globalists Demand Committee to Save the World Order.
And I will be linking to that in the after the interview section. I'll link to the homepage of the New American, also to your fine article. Alex Newman, you're a bright guy. You're a wonderful. A lot of people come on and say, "Wow, how old is this guy?" I don't know. You're 30, whatever. And it doesn't make any difference. How old you are doesn't make any difference on how smart you are, because you're very smart. And a lot of people are like, "Wow, there is hope for the world when they see you." And I say the same thing.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
That's a high compliment. A lot of people really like you, including me. And thank you for coming on USAWatchdog.com and showing off, previewing your work and giving us a glimpse into, some of the things you're working on that we all need to know about this New World Order thing. They're after us, they're after us. I mean, just because you think people are after you doesn't mean you're not. It doesn't mean you're paranoid. Sometimes you really are right, and they are after America. They want to destroy it. Correct?
That's absolutely right, Greg. They want to bring down our Christian civilization. So, get on your knees and pray and get busy. Get out there. We got to save our republic. We got to save our freedom. Greg, thank you so much for everything you do. Your show is awesome. People need to watch it. And thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Alex Newman, the New American. All the links will be in the after the interview section for you people on YouTube. Alex Newman, thanks again for joining us on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks so much, Greg.